Hello, my name is Rain and welcome to my channel where I discuss Fantasy Formula 1. Today's video is not one of your usual videos, but it's a completely different type of content, and I mean, mainly this video is going to be a critique of how F1 Fantasy is run, unfortunately. So if you're not a fan of negativity, I would suggest subscribing to the channel and check out my next video instead. But this one is going to be a bit ranty. I haven't really planned anything. I'm just gonna press record, talk a bit about what just happened in F1 Fantasy, because chances are that you've missed it. This kind of shadow dropped today. Essentially, what has happened is that the points in Silverstone has changed a week and a half after they were finalized. And frankly, I think it's unacceptable. The sport is the biggest motorsport in the world. The sport in general is one of the biggest in the world. And I do think that the fantasy game should be held to that standard. And I mean, I'm fully aware that it's just a game. But when Premier League run their fantasy game super flawlessly every year, when NFL and essentially all American sports really run their fantasy super well, and especially because F1 is trying to integrate itself into American culture and really, find a way into the American market. I mean, we've seen that with Drive to Survive, we've seen that with the F1 movie. The fantasy game is a part of that. People love fantasy sports games, and I really, really do believe that F1 Fantasy has the potential to be one of the biggest fantasy games in the world. The sport of F1 just really, really works for a fantasy format. But you can't keep doing stuff like this, and it's not the first time it's happened. But I think this is one of the most egregious ones. Essentially, like 10 drivers, and then including their constructors as well, have had their points changed a week and a half later. Luckily, this has not affected any price changes, but some of the changes are big, and it's essentially just a miscalculation on overtakes. And I think it's crazy that no one has noticed it until now. I guess it was the changing conditions in the rain, I suppose. But we're going to get to that later. We don't even really know what happened here, where the previous overtakes came from, what even counts as an overtake. Because F1 Fantasy Tools, if you don't know, the GOATs, every week they make a sort of they have a live scoring feature on their website where they show the predicted points once the points are finalized, where they calculate the overtakes. And the F1 Fantasy, the F1 data GOATs have no idea what actually constitutes as an overtake for points in F1 Fantasy. So the reason why I have my video here up, this video was recorded 7 days ago. You can see it says there in Swedish, 7 dagar sedan. That means 7 days ago. And this was my race week review for Silverstone. I had 283 points. My team value was 121.9 million. My current OR was 3,125. And this weekend, you're going to see a video on F1 Fantasy Hub Rob's channel where we did a sort of halfway season review video. I had some discussions about the game and F1 in general. Definitely subscribe to F1 Fantasy Hub Rob if you haven't already, and you're going to see that video pretty soon. I think he's editing right now. And I actually talked in that video, because we recorded it yesterday, about 3,125 being my highest peak in F1 Fantasy so far, and that's no longer my rank. You can see here Oliver Berman scored 16 points in the according to the previous calculations. Ocon had 7. Fernando Alonso had 5. Nico Hulkenberg had 48. Piastri had 38. And now let's just go to my current team, or my let's check what has happened. So 274 instead of the 283. So I've actually lost 9 points from this. And again, I would imagine that this is correct, right? These 9 points are correct because, they've recalculated the overtakes. But how this was allowed to stand for 9 days, I don't know. I really don't know, man. You can see Oliver Bearman, 14 points, down from the 16 he was at before. Ocon lost a whole 3 points. Fernando Alonso lost 1 point. Hulkenberg lost 3 points. Piastri didn't lose any points, but it's mainly the overtakes, and there weren't too many overtakes at the front of the grid, so I think it's mainly that's a problem. And this means that I now, instead of having a rank of 31.25, I have a overall rank of 32.19. So I dropped about 90 odd places. 95, what was the exact number here? 96 spots on the global ranking, which isn't the end of the world. A lot of people got impacted by this, but it's still a lower number than where I was at before, so obviously I'm a bit disappointed. And yeah, frankly, this is just really annoying. I had made a lot of simulations, a lot of discussions made with the current points that was handed out. Now I think Ocon is definitely a worse option. Why? Well, because his average is lower. He has a 3-point lower score than he did over the last two, meaning that he's less likely to rise in price for the next race. That definitely changes a lot my plans for next race, in regards to which asset I keep. So it's not like everything is disregarded, but it's not a good look. It's not a good look. Let's actually look at a comprehensive list, courtesy of F1 Fantasy Tools, of everything or every asset that has had their points changed. Again, F1 Fantasy Tools continue being the GOATs. If it were for them, I wouldn't even have noticed this. So F1 Fantasy just quietly made changes to the overtake score during the British Grand Prix. 2 weeks after the race, they realized that some of their values were off. Most notably, Antonelli going from 9 to 0 overtakes. That's a big difference. I don't know where they got 9 from. I don't know how I didn't catch this, because, Antonelli DNF'd, so in my mind, Antonelli just DNF'd, and I didn't look too much into it. But he had 9 overtakes before this, and watching back the highlights of the race, I don't know where they found that number from. Truthfully, I have no idea. I have no clue where they found that from. And here's even a F1 Visualized posted a time lapse of this, and Antonelli, apart from some juggling with Leclerc on lap 8, there really weren't any time where Antonelli overtook a car. Like, that was the only time Antonelli, maybe here, but I don't know where they got 9 from. Truthfully, I have no idea. And these are the full changes. So Antonelli went from 9 to 0, and in parentheses here is the estimate that F1 Fantasy Tools put out before the points went final. So as I told you earlier in this video, F1 Fantasy Tools always put out an estimate for their their live scoring feature on their website. So they had estimated Antonelli getting 2 overtakes. He ended up getting 0. And this is where it also doesn't make sense, because those shuffles with Leclerc, why did they not count as overtakes? I don't know. Do you know? Is it because they were just shuffles back and forth? Was it on the same lap? What constitutes an overtake? We truly don't know. Stroll went from 12 to 6. That's also a massive difference. An 8 point estimate from F1 Fantasy Tools. And it should be noted that I, from what I've seen on the live estimates of F1 Fantasy Tools, it has been, over the last 2 years that they've been using this feature, right? That they very often slightly overestimate the amount of overtakes that count by 1 or 2. So it doesn't, 2 overtakes being incorrect in terms of their live estimate is what we've come to expect. But we still don't know why those overtakes count and not, and they go into some details further down in this thread on some overtakes counting and some not, and we don't even really know which 6 overtakes that Stroll did that count, because he passed the car 8 times according to F1 Fantasy Tools. Ocon went down from 6 to 3. I definitely got affected by that. Hulkenberg went down from 7 to 4 with an estimate of 6. Albon went from 5 to 3. The estimate of F1 Fantasy Tools there was 1. Bearman went from 6 to 4. Russell went from 8 to 6, and Alonso went from 3 to 2. And again, luckily, no price changes were affected by these changes. I think it would have been really bad if that really bad look if that was the case. It's already bad enough, but it would have been really bad. And F1 Fantasy Tools go on to say, we would love to help the devs check for these types of mistakes by also doing all the calculations ourselves, comparing both results and letting them know when there are potential mistakes. We've seen mistakes happen before, but that it was really obvious. It was like Yuki Tsunoda had 14 overtakes when he crashed on lap 1. Everyone instantly realized that was wrong. I haven't seen anyone on Twitter talk about any of this being a mistake until now. We already do this for all other point times since 2023. However, we currently can't do this for overtakes because F1 Fantasy has never revealed what exactly they view as a valid overtake. The only information we have is this snippet in the game's rules. Overtakes are considered valid when one driver illegally passes another on track and the driver passed was not entering or in the pit lane or suffering a car failure or going unreasonably slow. This is not specific enough to create one single correct algorithm. For example, how do they define unreasonably slow exactly? Is it a certain kilometer per hour? Is it proportional to the speeds of the quali lap? Is it the speed difference with which they are overtaken? And in all of these cases, what value is considered unreasonable? That is what we don't know. This means we can try our best to get as close as possible to what they have, but if it's different, we can never be certain it's because they made a mistake. It might just be a different definition of what counts as an overtake. And this is the problem. Because now F1 Fantasy, multiple times this season and last season, have shown that they make mistakes when counting overtakes. But we can't check them. We can't check these mistakes because we don't know when it's an actual mistake and when it's just, their different way of counting overtakes and what counts and what doesn't count. Right? And F1 Fantasy Tools continue to post a meme saying, I'm once again asking for more transparency in the F1 Fantasy rules. And I 100% agree. I think this is what we need. We need more transparency in how they calculate these points if they ever want this game to actually become considered one of the premier fantasy sports games on the market. And I think, again, it has the potential to be, but there's a lot missing. And we've talked about that before. We talked about that last season. I'm probably going to make a video on that later in the season of what I want to see change, because really none of what we wanted to see change got changed for this year. But it's a bad look, and I think they've definitely done a proper oopsie here, and the fact that it was caught so late is really concerning. Again, I just get brought back to that Tsunoda moment in Mexico last year, where Tsunoda went back first into the barrier into turn 1 and somehow got valued for 14 overtakes. Everyone realized that was wrong instantly, and we knew, this is just an oopsie. But how will we know? And especially when 1 point can be the difference between a 0.6 increase and a 0.2 increase. That could make a big difference at the end of the season. And, when we get to the end of the season, if the difference between whoever wins F1 Fantasy and who is second is like 10 points, how do we know that's legit and not just a couple overtakes here and there were calculated incorrectly? So yeah, I think this is a bad look for F1 Fantasy. They need to ensure that this does not happen again, but mainly we need more transparency in the F1 Fantasy rules, so that at least we can check them when stuff like this happens. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. I'm trying to hit 5k subscribers by the end of the season, and if you would like to be a part of that, that would be greatly appreciated. I'll see you in the next video on Monday. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.